Parshat Vayeshev. After reading about the dreams that Yosef had about the moon and the stars and representing his brothers bowing down to him, his brothers go out to shepherd in the field, and Yaakov sends Yosef after them. And we have a passage in which Yaakov calls Yosef and he says, L'cha ve'eshlochacha, come, I will go and send you, which is a bit strange because we don't usually have this experience where he's saying what's going to happen. It would simply say, I'm going to send you, or it would simply say, please go. And then he says to him, go and see what your brothers are up to, v'hashiveni davar, and return to me with the matter. But obviously, if he's asked him to go and find out, he's going to be returning to him and telling him what was going on. Now, rabbis tell us that what was happening over here is that Yaakov actually knew that his brothers did not like Yosef, that Yosef's brothers did not like him. And what he was doing is he was creating Yosef into a shliach mitzvah, a messenger for a mitzvah. And we have a principle, shliach mitzvah eino nizaken, that somebody who's being sent on a mitzvah does not get harmed. And so he was saying, L'cha ve'eshlochacha, come, I'm going to send you. That is the shliach mitzvah on the way there. What about the way back? Because according to many opinions, that only is on the way there. The return's not included. And therefore he says to him, Vashiveni davar, I am part of the instruction is that you return to me, and therefore the mitzvah is not only to go and see, to honor my instruction, to go and see what's happening, but also to return to me what you see there, and therefore you are a shliach mitzvah on your return as well. Of course, Yosef didn't return, and we know what happened next. That was destiny. Yaakov tried to ensure as best he can, but sometimes destiny and fate will take us other places more than what we intend to do. We then come to the episode in which Yosef is thrown into the pit. His brothers see him coming, and initially they throw him into the pit. And when it's talking about throwing him into the pit, the Torah says, Vayashlichu oisai habayra, they threw him into the pit. V'haboy reik ein boy mayim. The pit was empty, there is no water. And Rashi, a great commentator Rashi, recognizing that to most people this would seem superfluous, says, why does the Torah tell us V'haboy reik ein boy mayim, that the pit was empty, there was no water? What is it trying to teach us? Mayim ein boy, there was no water in the pit, but nachoshim v'akravim yesh boy, there were snakes and scorpions. What is the significance of snakes and scorpions? Well, Shlomo HaMelech tells us, King Solomon tells us in Koheles, in Ecclesiastes, that the punishment for lashon hara, for speaking bad, is being bitten by a snake. And therefore, what the brothers were indicating, the message that the brothers were sending to Yosef, is that in fact, we're punishing you because of what you did. What did you do? You went and told our father about things that you perceived to be bad about us, and you were actually wrong, and therefore that was lashon hara. It was bad speech, and the punishment for it is being bitten by snakes. Therefore they threw him into the pit. Now, most people, if you ask them what happened, they will say that then the brothers sold Yosef. But in fact, if you look at the wording, the brothers didn't sell Yosef at all. They threw him into the pit. Yehuda then turns round and says to the brothers, look, what are we to gain by killing him if he dies in the pit? Let's sell him to the Yishmaelim. And in the meantime, the brothers agree. They say, yes, Vayishmo Echav, the brothers agree. And in the meantime, other people came, the Midyanim came through, and they picked him up out of the pit. They saw him in the pit. They thought, right, we're going to make some money. They removed him from the pit, sold him to the Yishmaelim, and the Yishmaelim then sold him on in Egypt. So it wasn't the brothers, in fact, that sold him, but most people feel, and we very often say, the brothers sold Yosef. And the reason for this is because, our commentators tell us, is because the mere fact that they thought about doing it, and it's a principle I have mentioned before, but the mere fact that they thought about doing it means that it was considered as if they had sold Yosef and they were punished for doing so. They were punished later on for even thinking about and causing, ultimately by throwing him into the pit, causing Yosef to ultimately be sold. What do? They then have a problem. What they're going to say to their father. So I'm sure we're familiar with what happens next. They take his coat, his multicolored coat that Yaakov had made for him, and they put it in the blood of a goat, which is very similar to ours. They take it to their father and they say, Haker no, very strange, listen to this carefully. Haker no, recognize please, Hakasoines bincha hi imloi. Is it the garment of your son or not? Hakasoines bincha, the garment of your son? He had 12 sons. What does it mean, your son? Surely they should have said Hakasoines Yosef. Is it not, do you recognize not the garment of Yosef? But you know what happens, we're all familiar with this. When we get angry or upset with somebody, we tend to change the way we refer to them. We either use titles, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so or Sir, or we don't refer to them at all. An example of this is by Shaul. When King Saul was angry with King David, he says, when is the son of Yishai going to come? In other words, when we get angry, we suddenly become more formal about things to indicate that we are angry. And therefore the brothers who were angry at Yosef for what had happened, and at Yaakov for that matter, for providing him with this coat, they said to Yaakov, recognize please, what is the cause of what happened? It is the coat. That's what caused the anger that we have towards Yosef, the jealousy that we have towards Yosef. Yaakov realizes this. And what does he respond? He says, Chaya ra'ah chalaso, a wild animal has eaten him. He realized now, Yehuda is referred to an aryeh, a lion, and he realized that the brothers, he recognized the anger in the brothers' voices. He recognized it. By saying, Hakasoines bincha, your son, he recognized that they actually had done something. And he realized this was destiny, this was fate, and therefore he says that a wild animal has eaten him, Taraf Taraf Yosef, surely Yosef has been torn. He recognized the anger in their language and in their voices. He then gets sold to Egypt, and we know what happens. He is in Potiphar's house, and the Torah tells us that Vayihi Hashem et Yosef. Hashem was with Yosef, or Yosef was with Hashem the entire time. He remained true to his parents' ideals, to Hashem. He remained faithful to Hashem. And it says, Vayihi ish matzliach, he was a man that was successful. Vayihi beveis Adonav HaMitzri, and he was in his master's house, the Egyptian. And what the Torah is attesting to over here, it's giving witness to the fact that whatever the circumstances, Yosef remained faithful to Hashem. You know, some people feel that they can only remain faithful to Hashem when they are rich. Others feel that they can remain faithful to Hashem when they are poor. There is a test of poverty and a test of riches. What was happening here is Yosef, whether he was Ish Matzniach successful, he remained true to Hashem. Where he was in his house, the Egyptian house, where he was under tremendous difficulty, he remained faithful to Hashem. And the Torah is therefore bearing witness to the fact, whatever the circumstances with Yosef was, whether he was given the test of success, in which it's difficult sometimes, people feel it's difficult to serve Hashem, or the test of poverty, the test of hardship, in which sometimes where it's hard, we lose faith. Yosef never lost faith, and he remained righteous, and that is indicated in his name, Yosef HaTzadik, Yosef the righteous one, all the time that he was in Egypt.